One thing I've noticed writing about climate, that the climate crisis is, I don't think I've had more press releases in my entire life. Look, there's a lot of companies doing a lot of very good things, but it's sort of important as a journalist to be judicious about the information that's being given to you, that it's not greenwashing or there's not a PR. The first thing I'll say for the Independent is, it's become a massive focus for us over the past few years. The team is one that we've really built out. They brought me on in the US to be the senior climate correspondent, and we've recently had another female journalist hired in the UK, Daisy Dunn, who's fantastic. She came from Carbon Brief, and also there's also other reporters there who are now writing more and more on a daily basis because the story just is more and more important in the news cycle. It's touching on all our lives. So I really think we've built out in a big way. We're even encouraging our video team, and they're doing a lot more work producing, because it's a great way visually to tell the story. They've been producing really excellent packages explaining about the wildfires, for example, how hurricanes have become more extreme due to climate change. Yeah, and I mean from the whole sort of editorial overview of all this, it's a huge focus. But the one thing I will say as well, in a really minute thing, and it's something that you mentioned already when you said climate crisis rather than climate change, that's been a real editorial decision at the Independent to refer to this as a crisis. It's happening now. It's not a future thing. It's upon us, really. I really believe in telling the story. If it's a hurricane or if it's a wildfire, you can have a lot of statistics, you can have a lot of expert positions, you can have people in politics saying things, but I really believe that the story from an individual person or different people is really the way to sort of tell those stories. And I also think there's a real aspect when it comes to climate, particularly in the US, but I think this is a much broader thing, that it's a story about equality, it's about equity, whether that comes down to, racial inequality, economic inequality, or frankly, developed and developing nation inequality. I think that's something that, like when you're telling a story about a place, I want to talk to people from that place. Women are going to be the ones who are much more affected by the climate crisis firsthand across the world, and it's particularly in the developing world. So I think it's really important to elevate stories of people who are in these places and experiencing climate change, firsthand. I want to talk to people from that place to hear it from them. So that's the main thing I would say is if you're telling a story about somewhere, get on the ground, and if you can't get on the ground, get on the phone. Scientific studies can be wonky and full of language that the average reader, frankly, might not understand, or it just puts them off. So it's really the journalist's job to sort of get into the details of it and sort of try and synthesize that information and then write it in language that I always think about my mom, but that my mom is going to read and want to read and sort of understand. That I think that's really important. You can write a 1,200 word article on a subject, and that's good and everything, but sometimes having graphs and infographics or like a short video package on something can go a lot further to explaining something to people, depending on what kind of budget you have at your disposal. Is one thing I've noticed writing about climate, that the climate crisis is, I don't think I've had more press releases in my entire life. Look, there's a lot of companies doing a lot of very good things, but it's sort of important as a journalist to be judicious about the information that's being given to you, that it's not greenwashing or there's not a PR spin on it. And, think about, all I would say is just think about where it's coming from. If it's a study and it's in a reputable journal and it's peer reviewed, that's trust the scientists. When it comes from a company, think, be careful. That's all I would say. Think hard about what you're using and whose story you're telling really when it comes to that. That would probably be my last point.